everyone, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Ariane Saffron, and I am an awakened person on Earth, and I'm on a journey to comprehend how to apply that to being on Earth. And today I have with me Gail Whitlow. Gail is from the Six Nations reservation area.
Yes, Grand River Territory. Yeah.
Yes, and she is also the founding creator of the Land of the Dancing Deer, healing lands where ceremonies and healing has been taking place for over 10 years now, and that's growing into a healing village. So I thought it was for me, the idea of communicating with teachers and healers and guides. Gail was an amazing first step because of your position of holding community space. So, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you today, and we're going to talk. And so, whatever you want to talk about, let's.
Well, I'm very grateful. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of your history. Obviously, in this format, we could probably make videos just on your healing path alone. But what are some things that have brought you to this point and sitting here today that you think people need to comprehend about the Earth Walk?
The Earth Walk is beautiful, challenging, heartbreaking, amazing. And once you start that journey, you've started it way before your time here on Earth. So basically, when you're in the sky world, you make the journey here, you have a predestined path, but it's our human condition that puts the human into the path because we have free will. So we get a chance to work with that freedom of becoming who it is that we want to become or need to become in our future life. So my name is Ka Dine, which means to take a lasso, throw it over a forest and pull it in. So it took a long time to understand, what that name would mean. So as I walked my path, things started to unravel, because at first it's like, whoa, a forest is, it's like a collection of community and even worldview. So a forest has many types of trees, many types of vegetation, many types of animals, many types of birds, many types of visitors that live and migrate and move. And so if you really look at it, that's who we are as people. So what happens sometimes is we have to bring those things together and understand the connection that we all have together, as opposed to this is an oak tree, this is a pine tree, this is a eagle, this is a hummingbird. We all have a unique place to fill within our walk. So my heart is with my culture, because many people don't understand the complexities of culture, and that even though I live here at Six Nations, there are different types of nations, like there's Cree nations and Ojibwe nations and Algonquin nations, and so many more that have been extinct for a while. We have the Western nations, we have more Eastern nations. Every nation has their own language, their own culture, their own identity, their own dress. So one of the reasons that we're called Six Nations is because we realized at one point, or the ancestors realized, that we work better together harmoniously. So we had times of unrest here on this earth many, many, many times, and we're going to go through a period of beauty, then we're going to go through unrest again, and a period of beauty and a period of unrest. And through those processes, we transform our being.
It feels like cells contracting and expanding, yes, or seeds getting uncomfortable in the earth and expanding and growing into a plant.
Yeah, like it's all a building of something. And so the human experience isn't just about an existence in one type of body. So for instance, So this time I'm Haudenosaunee, but I've seen my life through other eyes and other nationalities. You know, I've seen visions of another life as a Dutch girl. You know, I've seen my other life as a black girl. You know, I've seen so many different nationalities, and so I'm sure the human walk involves what we need to be at this time. And as we go through each of those walks, it makes us stronger. It helps us to look wider and deeper into the reality of who are we and where do we come from.
And why are we here?
And why are we here, more importantly.
Yeah.
And we're here because human consciousness is in need of whatever it is that we're about at this time. And even if we don't know what we're about, some people think we have to be a Dalai Lama and we have to be like this big position of power, and that's what we strive. But the Dalai Lama, it's a really hard life, you know, with living with all of the protocols. You can be a very enlightened soul, and you can be pumping gas. And imagine, you know, some people come, they're lonely, they have no one to talk to, and they go and they pull into a gas station, and there's this somebody saying, "Oh, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
You know, how can I help you today?" And then there's a minute of conversation. It brings you into a different space. And so some people are just here because they need to look at all that life has to bring us and show us and teach us, and that we have the capacity to be the gas station attendant, to be the Dalai Lama. But what we are is bringing about a balance in our consciousness.
That is such a powerful perspective, because I find for me on the healing path, sometimes I'm down on myself if I'm not on. And I find that it's like when you bring in social media, you bring in trends, it's like you feel like you need to hurry up and be spiritual. And that's not the case. Like sometimes I feel awful, or, you know, and I just do need that little smile from a everyday person to say, "Hey, how are you?" And my day is totally changed. Yeah. It's not always like prayer or ceremony.
No. We walk, we live, we breathe ceremony. So every place we walk on this earth is sacred. You know, the Aborigines talk about dream time, how each step that you take, you're walking in the imprint of other human beings and other things that have happened at another time. So you're walking in the imprints, and it's a big way to think, because it's the same with dream time. How many times do we have those dreams, living and waking, that we look at deja vu and say, "Wow, okay, what just happened here?" And you kind of feel a shift has happened, but then you go, "Oh well," and you go on with your day.
Yes.
And
what was that?
Yeah. And then, you know, maybe you've shifted 10,000 eons or something in that in that dream, you know, or things. And are we really awake right now? What is awake? What is sleep? Because when we're sleeping, we're certainly not sleep. We're subconsciously in another realm. So, you know, the reality of life, no one really knows right now what that is. You can have a million different interpretations of what it is, but I believe we all have our own reality, and we all have our own path. We all have our own destiny. We've all come from a place outside of this realm, and we're going to be traveling through different realms throughout our lifetimes and the many lifetimes to come. So, I mean, there's so many philosophies there.
So many. There's so many schools of thinking surrounding that, and I love your take on it. Is so peaceful, right? Because a lot of people that I'm meeting in today's time are waking up to being star beings or alien nations or remembering past lives, and it's kind of finding that compass. Like, how do you make sense? Well, why am I all these things and I'm human right now? And so what are your thoughts on the people who are waking up to the higher consciousness and reaching for Indigenous practices?
That's a question that has many answers.
Yeah.
But the answer and the way I'll answer this question is, we'll go the simple way because that's what life is about. Life is more about simplicity than we realize, and that's why things are so messed up, because simplicity is always the answer and always the key. Simplicity means that all of us have in this lifetime come from a background where our ancestors lived off the land, our ancestors did rituals and ceremony, our ancestors were part of a bigger picture. And because they were part of a bigger picture, governments and organizations and movements have cut most everyone off from their real, true spirit. So if you lived in Europe, Europe had the Dark Ages. They had all of these things that have taken the spirit away from the people, because some say it's because of different beings from different solar systems that come and they exert their influence, and they want something from the planet at this time.
Yeah.
So we obviously know that minerals are being extracted. Where do all these minerals go? If you really think about it, where do they go?
Yeah.
And if you're extracting them, and what's the outcome of that?
A depletion.
Yes, but where? If you take gold out
Yeah.
and you melt gold down, where does it go? How is it dispersed? Or is it being taken? Is it being mined? And is it being taken somewhere else?
Yeah. The questions.
Yeah, so those are things that people don't always consider. The native people, well, first of all, let's jump to a reality that is really something that is really influencing my thoughts right now.
Okay, please. Yes.
Right now, here we are, we're in this beautiful space, in this beautiful time. We can go home and we can eat and we can sleep, and we can relatively find a calm, even though people are still in this mindset. 500 years ago, we were in the same chaos. The same chaos that is affecting those areas that where uncontacted people have lived. Now they're doing the same thing to them that they did to us 500 years ago.
Yes.
And we're sitting here nice and comfortable, and they're being headhunted, and they're being extracted from their lands, and they're being killed, and they're being murdered, and they're being exiled, just like we were.
Yes.
And so the pattern just continues and continues and continues. And that happened to Europe and all of the other nations way before it happened here. So it's just been a process. No matter what you are doing, you have to think about what is ultimately affecting the whole mind of the earth, because we look at the earth as a living, breathing soul. And we look at the earth as alive. We look at the plants and the trees, and we look at everything surrounding us as alive. So what's alive then is our tuning in to those types of situations and saying, how do we bring balance? So for us, we're people of the Great Law. The Haudenosaunee consists of different nations that, through our prophecy, through our evolvement, went through a process of annihilation, decided to bring ourselves together to work as one people, one tribe, one nation. Yes. We created the basis for that, and then we didn't have all the other nations here. And so now we have all the other nations coming, and all the other nations are here now. So that means that now we can even become stronger, because all of those teachings and the roots, the extending out around the world, it's a living, breathing entity. And a lot of people don't necessarily think of that. They think it's just a beautiful picture of a pine tree with an eagle sitting on top with something going on with the roots. People don't get the depth of seeing this beautiful pine tree and what it really represents. So it represents the amalgamation of thoughts, teachings, different things, and it's making and forming a piece, because in order for there to be peace on earth, there has to be a basis for that. So many times in our, I guess our thought process, we go back to a time when we had to expand and contract, just like that breathing tree, expanding and contracting, expanding and contracting. So we had to, we're kind of in that contracting mode, switching to the expanding mode.
Okay.
Because now we're about to go out, we're about to be able to gather that peace again. You know, so in order to do that, the cultures of the world need to remember their roots. And so that's what Indigenous peoples offer. Because us Indigenous people, we still have our cycle of ceremonies.
Yes.
We still have our way to connect. And that's what most people have lost. And when we connect through sitting on the land, feeling what that's all about, watching the skies, watching the stars, and see what that's all about, listening to the winds, listening for those voices, you know, using our voice, our song, seeing how it resonates. You know, those are our teachers. And that's what people need to do in order to connect to their roots. Because that's what we still do to connect to our roots. So it's not about anybody having to, you know, invent a new culture, because culture is within everyone. Mm-hmm. Ceremonies are within in everyone. It's just they needed something to resonate to bring back their own culture.
I completely agree. This is also information that I've channeled from star beings, and I love that you share this teaching. It's just so powerful. But that also guides me to ask some questions just for some clarity. And I know there's probably not any one perfect answer, but what is cultural appropriation in this process, and what isn't? Like, where are the safe boundaries that everybody is respected?
Now that's a very loaded question. I mean,
it's loaded.
I could spend the next 10 hours talking about that.
Yeah.
So if I have to say that in a shortened form, it means simply this. So we have teachings, we have a way of life, we have a cycle of ceremonies, we have a basis for who we are. So it's important that if this is who we are, we understand this. And what's happened over time is, residential schools and 60 Scoop, they've taken that out of a lot of our people. So they took them out of their homes, they put them in foster care. You know, all the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional abuse that has been suffered has caused people, even our own people, not to have this connection anymore. So some people are reaching for those pieces. You know, they're looking for an identity. If you have an identity, it's important that you keep that identity and you know what that identity is. So for instance, even though I've walked the Sundance path, I've gone fasting, I smudge, I do a lot of things that are from other cultures, it doesn't make me forget who I am deep down. So for me, ceremony through Longhouse, you know, it's the most powerful thing. No, our teachings are the most powerful thing for me. So to understand that you don't be crossing too many paths and trying to incorporate all of those teachings into someone you're not, that's kind of what it is. And so it's like, if we're looking at a way to create a visual
for people,
yes,
when they don't have that cultural identity, but they're starving for it,
yes, and which most people are.
Yeah.
So you know, that's why it's important to have people who keep the faith, and that's why through our system we have faith keepers, but we also have our own people who have experienced other cultures. And understand them. And it's important that we experience other cultures and understand them, but that we don't wear and take on the other identities. It's like we learn and we grow from sharing with others.
Use it as an inspiration to
Yes.
discover your identity.
Yes. And so for me, I don't like our traditional Longhouse dresses because one day I was traveling in Carlsbad, New Mexico. Mm-hmm. And I walked into this little shop, and in this little shop there's this pioneer dress, all these pioneer dresses, and I go, they look just like what we wear as our traditional dresses here. And I go, I just can't get into that,
I can feel that, yeah.
But then we can't also live with our buckskins anymore either, because that's not functional for our daily life anymore either. We do not need buckskins anymore the way that we did when we were living off the land, and we were being respectful, and it was a necessity. So as people, we need to understand that change is all there is. And so we have to accept change, and we do. We accept change, we embrace change, and so we have to kind of like understand the deep meaning of what change is, because it's changing, and it's being more inclusive in our changes. But if we have that connection to our original roots, that's important.
Because I feel like even though we didn't talk specifically about, like, use the word colonization, we still talked about it, right? It's still umbrellaed there. And so I feel that the what I just heard you describe of trying to find your identity and respect other cultures is things that I see are happening on the land of the dancing deer. So if you could just share with me a little bit of the inspiration for that and the dreams for that, and then we'll...
Okay, again, that's really big. I see Land of the Dancing Deer as a place for healing that isn't surface level. It's for finding that really deep connection that most are missing to the land, because it's through the teachings of nature that everyone's going to come back to their own. So Land of the Dancing Deer then is important because we will be able to bring, if you do, if you're Tibetan, you can bring your culture and you can share. If you're Indian, you can bring your culture and share. If you're Maori or you're from some other place, you can bring your culture and you can share. And that's the importance of Land of the Dancing Deer. It's going to be a place where we can start to have that conversation about what is the things from all of these cultures that are important to the world as we know it now, and to the healing of all of our nations, because we can take bits and pieces of all of us to heal the world.
It feels, going back to the analogy of the pine tree and the roots and the growing and the pulling all the energy and forming new life. To the land.
Yeah, it is. It's a, not only is it a new life, it's a life that is being directed.
Okay.
It's the land that is pulling this. It's not a human thing. It's
Land and the stars.
It's the land. It's the great beyond. Our creation stories tell us we're not from here. This is a place that we come, we learn, and it's like life and death. As we come in, as Mother Earth or as Sky Woman fell, it wasn't an easy process. As you die, it's not an easy process, So there's, it's like the snake skin. The snakes have to shed their skins, and that's not an easy process. So life is not an easy process. Eagles, in their lives, they have to undergo great changes. And so we admire an eagle for its beauty and its ability to fly high. But to live the life in an eagle is not what most people could even fathom. And so it's the same for us as people. We have to learn how to be able to balance our depression, balance those things that are happening in our lives. We have to find the way that we humans can look at the hardships of what's going on in nature, to understand that everyone has to go through these hardships in order to become that beautiful, enlightened being that is created when you do.
Yeah, and we all deserve that.
Yes.
We all do.
Yeah, and we all do.
Well, thank you so much for connecting today and sharing your thoughts. And I hope we can do this again. There's so many more questions and so much more conversations to be had.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Gail.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for the invitation.
So, you're so welcome. So we're going to attach all of Gail's information if anybody wants to connect with her. Yes?
Yes,
and
that's fine.
You run a clinic as well?
Yes, Ancestral Voices Healing Center at Six Nations.
Okay.
Yes.
So we will have that information along with this video for anybody who wants to connect with you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for listening. Take care.
Yes. Yawagoa.